Hello, and welcome back to Random Vids. Today I am going to continue with the 101 Dalmatians ranking series. So, I've done Season 1, I've done a part of Season 2, so what's this going to be? Another part of Season 2. I'm calling it Part 2, with a total of 15 episodes. And I'm going to be ranking all 15 of these from worst to best, in my opinion. So, you know what? Let's get started right away with number 15, Citizen Canine. You know what? I tried to be nice to Trick Track Toe from the last ranking, but Citizen Canine is bad. Like I said before, I hate Mayor Pig, and thank God he is in this one. Like, I know, he's grouchy and all, but they turned that up to 100 in this episode. Finally, Lucky snaps and challenges Mayor Pig for, I guess, the mayor. Lucky does, however, win. Well, by lying, of course. And, well, of course, Lucky is the one who gets punished, and not Mayor Pig. You know what? I'm done with this episode. Let's just move on. Number 14 would go to Lobster Tail. I don't know how you can make an episode about lobsters boring, but they did. And of course, characters like Swamp Rat, and they also put in the very grumpy goose that no one likes. And I swear the only funny thing was the whole Cruella scene. Other than that, episode is pointless. Number 13 would go to Alive and Chicken. Not quite as boring as the last one, but still a little boring. I really don't have words for this one. But, of course, once again, the only funny scene was the one with Cruella. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean this scene. And like I said, it's the only silly part about the whole episode. Otherwise, it's just pretty boring and forgettable. Number 12 is Uzi Doesn't. Grumpy Goose is in it. Enough said. Just kidding. Honestly, this episode can can be slow at times. But then other times, it moves, I guess, at a pretty fast paced. And it's silly. Well, mostly the Cruella scenes. Well, obviously. I don't mind the pup scenes as well, but I just enjoyed watching more of the Cruella scenes rather than the pups and Spot scenes. Not saying they were boring, it was a little more it was more likable when Cruella was on screen instead of just the pups, but I didn't mind it, and it was a decent episode, I guess. Number 11 would go to Move It On Over. So the episode starts off with the cows fighting, and later everyone else ends up fighting, thanks to good old Cat Pig. Honestly, this episode kind of reminds me of Profit and Loss from Season 1. I don't know, it just kind of does. I don't know why, it just does. Enough said about this episode. It's decent, and that's that. Number 10 would go to Invasion of the Doggy Snatchers. That one chicken thinks that the pups, have turned into aliens, which honestly is kind of silly. And honestly, this episode is fairly good. Um, Obviously, the pups are not aliens. It's just the chickens and their crazy minds. But what ends up happening is that the pups are actually throwing a surprise party for Spot instead, because the chickens thought that the pups were aliens, which they weren't. Like I said, fairly good episode, and it makes top 10, I guess. Number 9 would go to Prima Dogi, or Prima Dogi. I can't say that right, I'm sorry. So in this episode, Lucky really wants to be a part of this commercial that is, I guess, being filming. So, of course, he ends up winning because, I mean, I don't know anyone in the world who would say no to a baby dog. So, only if you aren't really dog fans, I guess, or if you don't like Lucky. But they end up saying yes to Lucky, and then when they do say yes, he really does think that he is famous. This episode honestly kind of reminds me of Shake, Rattle, and Wolf. Well, a more worse and boring Shake, Rattle, and Wolf, in my opinion. But I guess it's still pretty good, I guess. Number 8 would go to Do the Right Thing. So in this episode, the pups see Corella drop her purse. Or at least they think they saw Corella drop her purse. They think it's hers until she says it out loud that it is Anita's. They do eventually, at the end, return the purse. By far, though, my favorite part of this episode is the Jasper and Horse part, where they put on different clothes. You know what? Let's just watch for a moment. Definitely a top 10 best episodes. I like it. So you know what? Let's move on. Number 7 would go to Double Dog Dare. This episode is pretty silly. I love most of the episodes with Cruella in it, and this time they're gonna steal Corella's sleeping mask. So, what does that lead to? Let's see, what do you think it leads to? Yeah, you guessed it. It leads towards her house getting flooded. And all 4 of them, Corella, Scorch, Lucky, and Spot, I forgot her name, trying to swim out of it. This episode is pretty silly. The ending is pretty sweet too, because Spot actually goes and saves Scorch. And altogether, this is a really good episode, for sure. Number 6 would go to Valentine Days. This episode almost, well, not almost, but it kind of reminds me of Swine's Song from Season 1. But honestly, in my opinion, I think it's much better. I think that it's funny that Roger makes a Valentine for Anita. He makes one for Anita because, well, obviously it's Valentine's Day. But it accidentally goes to Cruella, so she thinks that Roger is in love with her. Well, until he tells her, then she gets mad. Like, mad, and just takes all of the Valentine's gifts and shred them. And almost even the one Roger made for Anita. At the end, though, the pups do give her gifts. And, Roger ends up getting the gift back to Anita. This is definitely a good special. And, like I said, I think it's even better than Swine's Song. And just a very good Valentine special overall. Number 5 would go to Full Metal Pullet. As I said in every video, I love Tripod. And thank God he finally has another episode again. Ever since Lucky All-Star, and you know how much I like that one. And yes, Screen Pug is annoying as usual, but I don't know if it's quite as bad as normal. I don't know, this one I didn't quite hate him as much as normal episodes, but I still really did not like him. The only thing I did not like was that whole weird ending in this episode. I thought it was beyond weird and beyond cringy, but other than that, this episode is really good. Number 4 would go to Close But No Cigar. Normally, I don't like episodes where whenever someone misses something and then they try to make up something to make it look like, oh, they actually were doing something really similar to it. But honestly, they managed to make this episode not only funny, but entertaining. Entertaining. I love it whenever Corella or Jasper and Horace are on screen, and I love the whole Corella trying to set up a stand at the fair, or when Jasper and Horace are just chasing after the pups and Spot. And I still, to this day, get a laugh at this episode. And it is definitely one of my favorite episodes in this part. Not only this part, but one of my favorite episodes in the whole show. Like, it has always been one of my favorites, and I still like it to this day. Number 3 would go to Smoke Detectors. I don't think I'm the only one that confuses this one with Close But No Cigar, mostly because of the title, but honestly, it really reminded me of Leisure Lawsuit, where Corella is staying with the Dearleys. But honestly, in my opinion, I like this one even better. I like the whole Corella trying not to smoke thing, and there are many funny scenes. I really like it whenever they flush her cigarettes down the toilet. I thought that part was really funny because everything just ends up exploding later on, which was really silly to watch. I like the whole Corella turning into a dog, or at least acting like a dog, scene too. I thought that was really funny. And I also love the whole ending scene with her being obsessed with gum. Definitely one of my favorites. Number 2 would go to Barn Boozled. 2 Corella-centered episodes in a row. And this one kind of reminds me of Southern Fried Corella, but way better. Everything about this episode gets me laughing. Even though she can get sorta mean at times, it's still funny, and she does get what she deserves at the end. And I also really love the whole night scenes with the pups trying as hard as they can to get Corella out of the barn, and all of those scenes were really funny. And the ending had one of my favorite Corella moments in the whole show. Let's just watch for a moment. Definitely number 2. And now, number 1, and my personal favorite episode of the 101 Dalmatians series, Season 2, Part 2, is You Say It's Your Birthday. Oh my gosh, I love this special. It has everything that I like about it, but since it's a special and it's 20 minutes long, I'll only talk about my favorite moments. First off, I like how both the pups and Cruella hear something wrong, so they try to help themselves. They try to help themselves out. Second off, I love every scene in this episode with Corella, Jasper, and Horse. Third off, I love the scene where Corella dresses up as a clown, and honestly, I can keep going. But my favorite scene is the part where Corella picks up Whizzer, who just gives her the cutest little smile ever, and licks her, and pops her nose off. Well, you know what I mean, her clown nose. She eventually finds out, though, that it was a misunderstanding, and the cake, with a bomb in it, explodes on her. So now she's covered with cake, and all the pups lick it off of her. Definitely my favorite episode from Season 2, Part 2, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this list too. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.